Good morning, everybody. My name is Antonio Gomez. I work for the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support, and I will be your moderator and technical support for today's webinar. Today, we're happy to present the 2025 Apprenticeship Expansion Program and Apprenticeship Illinois webinar. Please hold all your questions into the Q&A portion of the webinar. If you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to use the Q&A function or post them in the chat. We're happy to address them as we can or to address them during the Q&A. This webinar will be offering closed captioning. Feel free to turn that on. And we will also be recording this webinar. This webinar will be available on Apprenticeship Illinois, and you will also receive a link to the recording after this webinar is concluded via email. And then, are we wanting to get started with any polls?
Uh, no, I don't think we need to do a poll on this one.
Excellent. Then without further ado, I'm going to let Chase Martin take it over.
All right. Thank you, Antonio. My name is Chase Martin. I'm the grant manager for both the specialist and uh, the uh, losing my losing my thought right now for both the specialist and the intermediary grants. And I also want to apologize that my camera's not on. I am having technical issues right now, so hopefully I had a chance to meet some of you guys at the boot camp, but if not, I'll eventually have my camera on so you guys will be able to put a face with my voice here. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and let Josh take over, and he's going to run you through all of the GRS, which is our grant reporting system. And he'll kind of go step by step on exactly what you need to do for that. And then he'll answer any questions you have at the end of his presentation. And then I'll jump back on. So, Josh, go ahead, buddy.
All right, good morning, everyone. Josh Coons with OET. I'm the fiscal liaison and grant manager for our formula grants. So I'm going to walk you guys through here a quick PowerPoint. This is more for the entry level folks that might not have have used GRS before, and then we'll go actually into GRS. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can someone confirm that they can see a PDF PowerPoint right now?
Looks great.
Yes.
Awesome. All right, so just going in here, GRS is an electronic reporting system consisting of several screens accessible by grantees for the electronic entry of costs, obligation, miscellaneous receipts, disbursements, and cash requests. Um, the main portion of GRS for you all that you'll be using is you're going to be entering your costs, in your receipts, which we'll go over, and then that's where you guys actually file for reimbursement or you submit cash requests to us for approval. Access GRS now requires both a RACF identification number and an Illinois digital ID. So if you already have a RACF ID, then you can kind of ignore this next part. But if you don't, then you'll have to go through this process in order to get access to GRS. And just a note, GRS will only allow one RACF ID number to be assigned to each grant. Only one individual will be able to review the information, enter costs, and request cash. The grantees are no longer able to share RACF IDs. In the last few months, that's changed the process. So usually it used to be that you could, use someone's login and you could review that information, but now it's actually assigned to that specific person. So authorized grantee contacts that access GRS must complete an external access request form. That form was attached in Chase Martin's email on 10/16, and it's called the external user guide digital ID access. So you would just submit that form to your grant manager, and they would get you a RACF ID. This is kind of what the form will look like. You're just really responsible for this top portion, and then Decio fills out the second portion of the form. This is our address information. You might need it for refund information or anything like that. It's also listed in the grant agreement. The person assigned to the ID should be the person who will be accessing the system. So typically it's the person that's reporting expenditures and requesting cash that needs access because they'll be using it on a weekly, monthly basis. If you ever need a password reset for GRS, you'll email this org box, ceo.racafsecurity@illinois.gov, and you'll just kind of state that you need a password reset. And then one of the IT folks will reply and reset your password for you. All right, so this is a new process for me. If you all didn't know, I've been on paternity leave for like the last 3 months, and this has just recently changed. So this is also new to me. But if you follow this URL that they have posted here, on the left-hand side, you click get a digital ID. You'll enroll for a PKI digital ID and then scroll all the way to the bottom of the page and click Illinois resident accept. You'll complete the form with the information matching what is listed on your driver's license or ID card. Everything must match your driver's license precisely, including your weight. Entry of this information is required for verification. You'll enter an email address and create a username and password, and then click on next. Answer 6 security questions. You will not be asked any of these questions when trying to log in later. And just so you all know, this PowerPoint is also in Chase Martin's email from last Thursday. So if you need to refer to it, then it's attached in his email. All right, so logging into GRS. After registration, the site will show several links, and find the link that says Web 3270 mainframe access or Web 3270. You may be asked to provide your login credentials for your digital ID, so you'll enter that information and press login. The screen to the right will display click, and then you'll click the Web 3270 mainframe. Then the digital ID login may show up again, and you'll enter your digital ID and password. And then another login will pop up where you'll enter your RACF ID and password. So if that's not confusing enough for you all. And then step 5, once the your RACF ID has been entered in the system, it'll ask you if you want to save your password. Please do not save the password. It has been determined that if the browser saves your password, system issues can occur. After the RACF ID has been accepted, the screen will show tab to the small white hyphen at the lower left, just above the green line. And on that line, you'll type in IMSH. You'll press enter. This is the Dekio GRS system. Then the IMSH login screen will appear, and then you'll once again be asked to enter your username, which is the MHD number that's provided to you, and then your password. After that, at the top of the screen, you'll type in /4HDGRS and press enter. And then you're in GRS. So this is what we're going to be going over today. I'm going to go actually into the system and speak to it, but there are slides after this that talk about what I'm going to be going over. So let's make sure here. Let's see. Okay. Did it switch over to GRS? Anyone confirm?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Awesome.
That's right.
All right, so when you guys log in, this is going to be the screen that you see, and you'll see all these options. There's only about 5 or 6 of these screens that are actually applicable to you all. We'll go over those, and then I'll tell you which ones you really don't have to worry about. So the first thing that I would do as a brand new grantee to GRS and at the beginning of a grant is I would go to the 362 screen, which is the subgrantee cost ledger summary, and I would print that screen. The reason I say that is because it gives all the expenditure codes that you will be using to report costs on, and the specific ones you'll need to actually enter costs. So that's what I always tell grantees to do. So I'm just going to use one that I know is active here. And so I'm using a software version of that's actually on my computer. So on your guys's, when you're using the web browser, there'll be a little like cheat box here for PF01, PF02, and it coincides with these numbers here. So if you have, if I'm trying to get to the F6 screen, there should be a little PF06 here that coincides. So you'll just click that button, and then it'll take you to that screen. So I'm gonna hit that now. It's gonna have you type in your grant number once again. Okay, so you'll see that the grantee name is listed here. You see all their approved budget. So they have funds loaded to personnel, fringe, travel, supplies, miscellaneous costs, indirect, and then direct training costs. So these expenditure codes are important because these are the ones that this grantee has loaded funds to and they will use when they report costs. Notice how there are additional budget lines that were available when you guys were filling out the uniform budget, but they only allocated funds to these. So these are the ones that are important to them. So sometimes it will go onto the second screen if you have funds loaded to more budget lines. So you can hit PF08 or F8 to go to the next screen. And then once you'll know you're at the bottom once you see this grand total and it's in white there. So this screen's also important because it's one of the 2 screens out of GRS that's required for your quarterly reporting. So it's supposed to be attached with your PFR substantiating records or your trial balance, whatever you're attaching. So this screen is important because this is kind of what we use to collect your guys' expenditures. So as we report it up through our chain on a monthly basis, this is kind of how we can tell how you guys are performing expenditure wise. So if we see, you're 6 months into the grant and you still don't have any costs and we're unaware of any situation, well, we may reach out to you, say, hey, are you having issues with GRS, or, are your expenditures low? What's going on? So this is just, it's important to keep this as up to date as possible. It is, just so you all know, a requirement that this GRS is, you report costs to us on a monthly basis. So, for an example, on October 20th, our grantees that we have active were required to submit their September costs to us. So for November 20th, you're going to be expected to submit your October costs to us. So it's always the 20th of the month. If it falls on a weekend or a holiday, it's the business day prior to that is when you're expected to have your costs in GRS to us. It's also important that you're reporting costs because we can't really give cash out unless we see costs in the system. So if you have no cost reported, like this grantee, and they were to submit a request for $50,000, we're going to flag that as to, hey, do you have advance paperwork? Did or is this an advance, or are they just asking for 50,000 without reporting any costs? So we question that. We might come back to you and ask for an explanation and possibly deny it, depending on what we're told. So I always tell grantees to print this screen. If you right click, what does this menu change to? Okay, so there used to be a print option. I'll have to figure out if there's another way that you all can print this. But you can also, I can try copy to file and see what that does. Okay,
Does the
all right,
F5 function work? The print thing?
F5. So it that the printer that is set up for GRS is actually a OET printer in our office, so it won't work for that for grantees. But hmm, I'm wondering if you can print the PDF. I probably just locked it up. That's not good. Okay, well, I'll get an answer on this as to where that functionality went, or if you guys are still capable of, you have to be, obviously, because we attach it to our quarterly reporting. But oh boy. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing real quick so I can try to fix this.
And Josh, I know they have before someone's told me they've used the snipping tool also if they need to.
Yeah, that's an option too, absolutely. Okay, now let me share again. Hopefully it's up. Okay, all right, so now we're back on the main menu. So the first thing I'm going to go over is your cost reporting. So like I said, this is what you're going to do on a monthly basis, and it is the 351. And just so you're all aware, you can report costs more frequently than monthly. So if you wanted to go in here weekly to report your cost or bi-weekly, whatever the case may be, as long as it's all your costs for the previous month are in by the 20th, we're happy. So you'll go to this first screen here, type in your grant number, and then you're going to go to PF01 or F1. What this is going to do, it's going to pop up the first expenditure line that's available to you all, which it'll show here as the description is personnel, and then it shows the expenditure code. Um, so what you see here is it's showing the previous month and then the current month. So this is September, this is October. If I were to try to report September here, I don't believe it's going to allow me to do so because reporting was turned off on the 20th. So I'll just test that real quick. Okay, so it says can't report prior month costs after 20 day of month. So what that means is that this grantee, say they didn't get all their costs in for September, or for you all, for example, if this grant started back in July and you're just now getting access to the system and able to report, you're going to cumulatively report all your costs in the most current month. So if I'm going back all the way to July and I have $25,000 worth of costs to input, then you'll just put it in October. And then So another thing about this screen is it's for the expenditure code for specific inquiry. This number you have to type in, and it always has to match this expenditure code. So if it were to be 1002 and I hit enter, it's going to error. So that's kind of like a double check to make sure you're inputting the cost on the line that you mean to. And a lot of times, this is where we see errors where a grantee doesn't realize this hasn't changed, and so they're trying to input costs on the 1005 screen, and they're like, "Well, it gave me an error." It's like, "Well, it's because you're actually on the 1001 screen." So let's just keep that in mind. So now I'm reporting, on the 1001 line personnel 25,000. So if I enter, you're going to see that number jump over to here. So that means it took the number and it says your request has been successfully displayed. One thing about GRS, if you're ever trying to reverse something that you've done, then you just have to put the subtraction sign at the end. So if you tried to put it at the beginning of this, it's actually just going to plus it up another 25,000 and you'll see 50,000 here. So that confuses grantees a lot too. But so if I hit this, it's going to back out the all 25,000 of that. So we're going to enter a fake cost just so I can show you on another screen what you would do. Okay. So we put 5,000 back on the personnel line. Say you're done entering personnel and you want to move on to the next screen, you'll hit PF08 and you'll always see these kind of like action keys down here. This is just to help you navigate the system. So if I wanted to go back to main menu, it'd be PF0 or PF11. If I wanted to go to previous, PF07 or PF08. So I'm going to hit PF08. And you'll see that it took me to the next line, which is fringe benefits, expenditure code 1002. So I would enter my cost for fringe benefits, PF8, enter my cost for travel, so on and so forth. And I believe it's only going to give you access to the codes that you have costs loaded on. So you can't accidentally enter it into a line that you have no budget on. So once you're done entering costs, so you've made it through all your budget lines, you've seen that total here or here, depending on what day of the month it is. Now you're ready to certify those costs. So you're going to go back to the main menu, which is PF11. And the next screen that's available is the cost summary screen 352 or PF02. And you'll see a lot of times we'll refer to the screens by their numbers over here. So if we're saying, hey, like, did you request cash on the 353? We're usually referring to this number. So we'll go to the cost summary screen 352, and you'll see here the grantee's name is listed, the grant number is listed, all the expenditure codes that they have funds loaded to is listed here. And then you see certified costs and uncertified costs. So any cost that you enter on that first screen, the cost reporting screen, is going to show up as uncertified initially. So really on this screen, you're just doing a double check to make sure that you entered everything correctly on the 351 screen. If you notice you did something wrong, that's when you go back to that screen and fix that by, adding more funds or subtracting funds. So once you're done and you agree with all these totals in the uncertified, you'll hit the FPF02 or certified cost reported. You'll see it shifts that uncertified over to certified. And really what we're doing on this screen is we're increasing your authority to request cash. So now I would be able to grant you all $5,000. And if you were to request 5,000, then you have certified costs that show that supports that request. So that's really all the screen's good for, is to certify those costs. So then I'm going to go back to the main menu. And the next screen is PF03 cash request or the 353 screen. So I'm going to hit PF03 or F3. Okay. So again, it gives you the grantee name here, the grant number, your cumulative obligation. That's just the amount that we obligated to your grant. So that's how much you would have been awarded. Any previous cash that you've requested will be listed here. Your certified costs are listed here, and then your cash request limit. So I'll just tell you all up front. So even though it looks like, okay, this grantee could technically request 105,000, that's because GRS is coded and the grant agreements are coded with, I think it's a 20% option to have an advance. But just so you know, there is prior approval that's needed for that. So there has to be a workbook filled out that shows your costs for the first 2 months. That has to be approved, and then you can come into GRS and request the advance. If you have none of that paperwork completed, then don't come in here and ask for more funds than you already have or than you have costs certified. So if this grantee came in for 50,000 right now, I would deny it because unless I, recognize that they have paperwork approved for it, because they only have 5,000 in costs. So to request cash, uh-oh. Okay. The system's very finicky, so if you ever hear weird dings or it's just like not working, it's best just to go back to the main menu and then come back into it, and it usually fixes itself. So I'm going to request 5,000. You can ignore this current cash on hand. You won't ever need to complete that. So once I've entered that 5,000, down here it says F2, certify process cash request. So if I hit F2, it's going to set this request to pending. It's the 0001 request and the date and then the amount. So what that does is that puts that cash request into a two-step approval process. So the first step is our accounting team or our Office of Financial Management. Just make sure that you guys are all GATA pre-qualified and you're not on any stop pay lists or anything like that. They approve the request. Then it comes to me with OET. I approve all the cash requests for our entire grantee pool. So usually what happens if I have any issues, I reach out to the grant manager and then they might reach out to you if there's any issues with cash requests. So once you're done there, I'm going to go back to the main menu, which is PF11. And then this next screen is it's not a required screen, but it's good to know. So it's cash request tracking. So say you submitted a cash request and you're wondering the status of that request. So if I go here, I can see that I submitted a cash request on 10/21 and it's pending. If you see a DECIO approved date, that means that it has finished that two-step process and it has been approved by both offices. And if you see a voucher number and voucher date, that means that it was sent to the IOC for payment. So if you see a voucher date and voucher number, the best thing for you to do is to go to the IOC's website under your TIN, and then ask for your TIN, and then your grantee name, and then you can search for payments that are pending. And then sometimes it'll even show like it's going to pay in a couple of days or whatever it may be. So it's important that before you reach out to your grant manager asking where a cash request is, that you do your due diligence and look at this screen and the IOC just to make sure it's not something that's on its way already. So I'm going to go back to the main menu here. So the next screen is direct deposit inquiry screen. You all will not use that screen if you do not have direct deposit set up already. It's highly recommended that you do that. However, we don't have access to that bank information or we don't control that. It's all at the IOC. So if you'd like direct deposit set up, I can give you a phone number to contact their electronic commerce division, and they will help you set up direct deposit with them directly. So our system will feed into their EFT information. So the next screen is the subgrantee cost ledger or the 362. That's the screen we went over initially that showed all your expenditure lines, and it kind of gives you a live look of where you're at in GRS with your costs. The next screen is the subgrantee cost ledger detail screen. You will not need to use that screen. I can go into it. Basically, what it does is I can see different reporting periods and when costs were entered. So for example, this one doesn't have a long history because it's just what I've done today, but you can tell that I entered a cost on 10/21 for 25,000. I reversed it and then I entered another for 5. So if you're ever trying to figure out, all right, like how much, how much of this is of personnel's from back in October, then you could come here and look at the report period and find that amount. So it's helpful, but it's not a necessary screen. So I'm going to go back to the main menu. Miscellaneous receipts and disbursements summary, 371. So this is the second screen that is required to be attached to your quarterly reporting, which I believe Chase is going to go over here shortly. So we'll go to this one real quick. All right, so at the top here, you'll just enter your grant number. And this screen's always going to be blank unless you have input information into it. So In a normal situation, you'll just print this and attach it. Not sometimes these two specific situations where this may occur are very specific. So if you don't ever have either of these occur, then you won't ever have to complete this screen. You'll just attach it as a blank document. But if you ever have any program income or program interest, those are the two situations where you would have to report that to us. And so really the grant agreement requires that if you have those occur, then and it has to be with grant funds. So if you ever have program income that is a result of the grant funds that we gave you, say you received $1 in income, then you just have to show that you were in receipt of that amount and it was the first funds out of your account essentially. So not a huge deal, but sometimes we'll see grantees that like forget to here they forget to show it as a disbursement, and so it shows like they have a balance of $1 hanging out there. So our accountants will reach out to the grant manager, say, "Hey, this is this. They have a balance showing as program income. They need to resolve that." So then you'd come in here and enter $1 as showing as dispersed, and then it would bring your balance back to zero. So I will back both of these out. Now we're back to zero. Like I said, if you don't ever have any interest or income, then you can just print this screen. So going back to the main menu, really those are the only screens that you all will need. All these three are not applicable to you all, so you can ignore the bottom three. And then the master menu, obviously, this is your guys' master menu, so you can ignore this one as well. So now I'm gonna stop sharing real quick, so that way I can open up the chat. Does anyone have any questions related to GRS, specifically to GRS and reporting or gaining access to our system? First up, we have Jordan. Can more than one person at the organization have access to GRS or just one person? So it does have to be one person. And like I said, that changed recently with DoIT making changes to GRS. So it does have to be specifically one person that has access to a grant. We can only assign one MHD number to one grant. Will Control P still work? That I have to figure out. I'm not entirely sure. It used to work where I could print it to Adobe that way, but it locked me up. So I'll play with that and we'll go from there. I'll get back to you all. If we have an MHD number from our previous grants, can we use that and just request an updated password? Yes, Veronica, that's the best route. So if you just send an email, if you know the MHD number and you send an email to that org box that I showed, which is ceo.racfsecurity@illinois.gov, then they can update the password for you all. So it looks like Kim said there's a camera function at the top of ours that brings up a screen that has a print option. Awesome. That I did not know, so that's helpful. Thank you, Kim. When the screen is up, okay, same thing there from Emily. That print functionality must be new because yeah, that was never an option before, but that's nice. Okay, Emily, I did not know that either. So I guess you all, with the new system changes, you can use your keyboard F1 through F12 buttons, and I guess the one that was on the screen before is no longer there. So you guys will use your keyboard F1 through yeah 12. That's awesome actually, because it's super confusing sometimes when people have to use the one on the screen. And Grace, so I believe GRS they fixed that issue that was a thing at one point, but our IT folks fixed that, so you should be able to use Google Chrome if needed, or Edge. Tanika, so okay, I do have a message saying, will the presentation be shared with us? So Chase sent this specific PowerPoint out on 10/16. If you weren't on that email, I think Antonio, do you guys post this onto WorkNet?
I don't know about this. Yes, I see Jen nodding yes. So yes.
Yeah, we'll
Okay,
get
But I
Kimberly
will
to
also send it
confirm.
out via email.
Mhm.
perfect.
Yes, thanks.
So yeah, the presentation and the recording will be available on WorkNet for you all to refer to. And then I have, please review the screens that we will use and not use. Okay, so let me share my screen real quick. So the most important screens for your monthly cost reporting are going to be these first three. So you're going to request, or excuse me, you're going to report costs on the 351. You're going to certify those costs on 352, and you're going to request reimbursement on the 353 screen. The other two screens that are important for your quarterly reporting are the 362 screen, sub-grantee cost ledger, and then the miscellaneous receipts disbursement summary, or the 371 screen. Those are the two that need to be attached to your trial balance when you submit your quarterly reports. The rest of the screens are not necessarily as important as those five. To set up direct deposit for this grant, can we email the grant manager asking for them to let the state comptroller's office know that we have been set up for numerous years, or do we need to reach out to the comptroller's office directly? Okay, so if you have an active grant with Dekio, you guys probably have a multiple account location code. And what we can do is it's a 3-digit code. And Kim, for specifically for you, I know that we have that number in our system, so we can actually ask our accounting team to set that 3-digit code up with your grant. So that's just an email to Chase saying, "Hey, can you have them set that up?" So if you have an active grant and have a multiple account location code, you can provide that number to us, and we can associate it with the grant. If you already have direct deposit set up, if you don't, you still have to go through the IOC. So Jordan asked, it looks like the PPR, narrative, and PFR are uploaded during WorkNet. Do you know if more than one person at a company can also have access to that, or is that also just allowed to one person? I think the answer is you can have multiple people have access to that, but I'm gonna let Jen and Chase answer that. I'm not as familiar.
Yeah, so with that, there's one person. I think you can only have one like main user, but they can add is I think as far as I know, as many people as they want on the WorkNet that can have access to it. And I'll kind of touch on that. I have a screenshot of actually what that kind of looks like. And there's just certain information that you have to have, and then the main user can add anyone else into it. And I can always add someone, and D Reinhardt can also add people too. So I'll kind of touch on that here in a little bit.
Perfect.
And Josh, there was Grace had another question. If they have multiple DCO grants, do they need to have one person only reporting cost across all of those grants, or can they do multiple rack IDs?
So that's tough because OET does things differently than other departments. Other departments, you kind of submit monthly to your grant manager. They enter your costs in GRS. We have you guys have access to the system and report your costs. If you have, so if it's a different department that you're talking about that has a grant with you, then it can be someone different for this grant. But if you have, I guess technically you could set up an additional RACF ID for yourself or for this grant, and it's just going to be a different MHD number than that grant. If it's like a different department or different, specialist that. So I guess the answer is yes. If it's someone different, then we could associate your ID with this specific grant, and that could be separate from your other active grants. Sorry, that's
and then I'll just reiterate what Chase had said for WorkNet. You can have multiple people, but GRS is different for you guys. Okay.
So it looks like Grace said same department, different people managing different grants. I think this is this is new to us, so I think it's worth a shot. I think it'll work. That you, as long as you have your own ID, can access it at the same time as that other person, as long as they're managing a different grant and you're managing this one. So, but we should be able to make that happen. So I shared my email address below to you all or in the chat. If you guys have questions about GRS, feel free to reach out to myself or Chase Martin, and we'll facilitate getting you guys an answer. It is a lot trickier than it used to be getting access because of the whole digital ID thing, and that's new to us. So just give us a little grace as we kind of like navigate the new requirements. But GRS is still the same. So we can always help you there. But if you have questions, reach out. We're here to help you all.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. Yeah, and I'll go ahead and kind of take over and finish up talking about the different quarterly reporting instructions that we have. So this year, Josh kind of touched on this with just the expenditures for each month. They have to be entered into GRS by the 20th, and Josh kind of went over that and what that kind of looks like if you put them in after the 20th. You just drop down to the next line and add them. But for you to get credit for that month, they need to be put in by the 20th. And this next part is just, keeping the supporting documentation for monitoring purposes and for reporting. And then just remember that the reported expenditures must be on an accrual basis. Jim, we can go ahead and go to the next one. Yep. And okay, so this was the Illinois WorkNet access that we were just kind of talking about. And this would, to add a partner, and like I said, the main user will be able to do this. And this would be the information that they would need from you if you want access to WorkNet. And like we said earlier, you can have as many people on there, working in WorkNet, but this would be how you would go about getting it. And there are instructions that will come out with this. Antonio's going to send out, and I send it out on the email of how to do this also, step by step on exactly how to add people and become a main user. So, and again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me about this. Okay, so this Josh kind of talked on this about the trial balance, the PPR and the PFR. And the PPR, and I will talk about that. That's the periodic performance report. The PFR is a periodic financial report, and then the trial balance would be the screenshots of the 362 and the 371 screen on GRS that Josh was talking about. And then here's just the naming convention of how you will name these documents as you save them. And this just makes life so much easier for us just to keep track of everything when we're putting them into our state system that we have to keep track of. And these will all, the PPR, PFR, and trial balance will all be uploaded into WorkNet. And there's also instructions on that. That I sent back on the 16th, and then Antonio is going to actually send them all back out with this PowerPoint and the recordings. So there'll be detailed instructions on that. And I'm going to go into WorkNet and just kind of show you a general overview of how all this will look. And then also on, I think I even put YouTube videos on that email that shows you exactly how to do it too. So, but we'll go through that. All right, and this is just what the PPR looks like. And basically on this, once you do it one time, I mean, if you save it, you will just be changing the dates and a few other things on here. But I mean, these top 13 boxes will mainly be what you have to put every month. And I mean, the final report's always going to be no until you do the final report at the very end of the grant. And then the report frequency is always going to be quarterly. And then you'll check this green arrow here. I just want to make sure we point this out. This is basically saying that your WorkNet will have all of the information for your performance reports. So you don't have to put anything else on here. And then for the database source, like on this next line here, you'll just put Illinois WorkNet down there. And so that's for the PPR. Yeah, and here's just the second part. It's a two-page document, and then here's the second part, and this is just the number 22 and 23, and that's just basically showing that you're on track with everything, and everything's going according to plan. If not, then you kind of write some details about what's going on, and then the grantee, and then you'll just sign it and date it and put your email address in there at the bottom. Okay, so and this also just kind of gives instructions on what you need to put. I kind of went through all of that, just it tells you exactly what you need to put in there. And those first 13 boxes are exactly what would be on the grant application that you filled out. So, or I'm sorry, on the grant agreement that you got. All right, and this, yeah, I already touched on this too. This is like talking about box 23 and 24 on the second page where You just have to check and make sure that everything is, consistent with the grant, everything's going according to plan. If not, you just need to write the explanation of what's going on. All right. So here, this is also talking about the reporting. So every quarter, you'll submit the PPR, the PFR, and the trial balance, and that'll be uploaded into WorkNet. And then there's also a quarterly narrative, which I will talk about also, that it will be done in WorkNet, but it's not a document that you submit. It's actually completed through Illinois WorkNet. And I will touch on that here in a little bit. Okay, this is what the PFR looks like. And it's, again, just like the PPR. Once you fill this out one time, nothing really changes. It's all about just the different information on your grant. And then the important thing on here is this highlighted CGRS. That's what you would put on this form. And then you don't have to put in, and we don't want you to put in any of the numbers from this. That is what the 362 and 371 screens will cover. So you don't have to put anything else on here. Okay, and then this is just talk. This is kind of instructions on what you need to type in, and then that's why I highlighted that CGRS, so you don't have to retype all of the numbers in there. Okay, so this is just talking about the PPR, PFR, and the trial balances. They all just need to be saved as PDFs and uploaded into WorkNet, into the Work Plan Reports tab of Illinois WorkNet. And I'll show you how to do that. And then, here it says, please see the uploaded PPR and PFR reports, which will be sent out to you after this. Okay, and this is what the quarterly report narrative looks like that you'll complete in Illinois WorkNet, and I'll show you how to get to this. But this is exactly what it looks like on WorkNet, and you just have to fill out each one of these boxes. Since it's 2025 right now, you'll literally pick the current year and then the quarter that you're reporting for, and then all 6 of these boxes, which is a summary of the grant activities, a summary of grant goals, the status update on strategic partnership activities, the status update on employer engagement activities, key issues and technical assistance needs, and then just the summarize significant accomplishments and success stories that you've had. And that's what it'll be every single quarter, and you'll have to fill out each one of those in order to save it. So yeah, and this we've talked about the trial balance, Josh did, and this is just where you literally take the screenshots of the 362 and 371 screens, save it as a PDF, and then you just name it as the trial balance like below. And then this second bullet point, though, since the grant started in July 1st, you can backdate all of your costs to July 1st. But I know with some of these new grantees, especially, and not being completely sure if you were getting the grant and all that, then we completely understand if you haven't had any costs yet. So just do a PDF and just say, an explanation of why there haven't been any, which can be as simple as, we didn't know we were going to get the grant, and, we'll get the ball rolling for next quarter and we'll have costs to put in. But as of right now, there's been no costs, just so we kind of have an idea of what's going on. All right, here we're going to kind of talk about technical assistance and monitoring. DCO will review all your activity and expenditures on a monthly basis, and we'll be reaching out, as needed on, if there's anything that doesn't look right to us or wondering why nothing's been done on the grant, or, whatever the case may be, we might be reaching out to you. We're planning on doing quarterly grantee meetings, and you can always set one up too. If you have any specific questions or need to talk to us about anything, please feel free to reach out. Nate Carlson, I believe is on the call. He has open office hours every Monday and Wednesday from 2 a.m. to or 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And he's there he is. And he's also available if you ever need him for any technical assistance stuff. So please feel free to jump on those. And you can find his office hours and how to get on there on Illinois apprenticeshipillinois.com. And there's actually a screen on that here too.
Thank you, Chase. And I just want to highlight, hi, everybody. Ivy Hood's on the call as well, and she's also going to be helping any issues you may have, specifically with using the WorkNet platform, in addition to Dee, and she can talk more about that.
Hi guys, excuse me. Yeah, my name is Ivy Hood. While Nate has a lot of experience on the programmatic side, I have been tasked with getting very familiar with the reporting side and Illinois WorkNet. So I know I'm meeting with LWIA 23 today to discuss some of their concerns, but I am available for appointments if necessary to discuss anything or any issue you have whatsoever going on with WorkNet.
All right. Thank you, Ivy and Nate.
Chase, did you want to go into WorkNet now?
I think that's coming up.
Okay.
I don't
Oh
know
yeah,
when
here's another one.
one of these screens coming up. All right. So this is just talking about fiscal monitoring. We have on-site monitors that can come out to your organization. They'll get in touch with you if they're going to come out and let you know in advance. It's not going to like they're not going to do random site visits, so you'll know ahead of time if they're coming out. Like I said, the technical assistance, Nate, Ivy's available for WorkNet. Nate's available for any grant questions you have technical assistance wise. And then I'm always available. Jen's available. So please, I mean, always feel free to reach out to me first and I can put you in contact with who you need and I can also assist you. So we're always here to help. Okay, this was the apprenticeshipillinois.com website. If you have not been to it, I highly recommend going. There's tons of resources there for you, and it's ever evolving. We're always putting new stuff on there. Like I said, Nate's office hours are on there. There's grantee reporting guides for WorkNet, and then just tons of other resources. So please feel free, or please take a look at this website. Oh, I, maybe did we delete that slide? Yeah, Jen, we'll go ahead and go. I'll go ahead and go into WorkNet now. Okay, so this is what it'll look like when you first log into WorkNet and you put in your username and password, and then you'll be going into this My Dashboard here, and then the Customer Support Center is where all the grantees will live, and this is what you'll be doing and finding all of your information on here. So this is what it'll look like for you. And since we're on this page already, this would be where we put our quarterly report narratives. And so it'll come up on that main here. I'll kind of go back. So this should be the only one that you have as well. So Apprenticeship Illinois, that's what you would click on. And this would be under the groups tab up here. Also, if you ever want to navigate back to this page, all these tabs up here can get you to every page we're going to talk about. So the groups tab would be where you would put the quarterly narrative. So you click on the Apprenticeship Illinois. And then this is also where you would type in or put in all of your customer information as you're getting people. And that will be for a different day also. But for right now, we're going to work on the reports. Okay. So this is where your work plan also sits, and we'll talk about that here. And you'll pick on the program year 25, and then let's just pick working. There we go. Okay, so this would be where you would just select whatever organization you are, and you would click on here. This would kind of give all the information about it, the project overview. Your project plan sits in here. The activities and outcome numbers that you submitted is also in here. So you want to go in here and look at all this information and make sure it is exactly what you submitted, because this is the numbers that we'll be going off of in WorkNet for your plan versus actual dashboard, which I'll talk about here in a second. And then this right here, this quarterly narrative update, is where you'll actually add your quarterly narrative. So like I said, you'll pick 2025, and then for this quarter, it'd be July 1 to September 30th, and you'll answer each one of these questions and then just save it. And so that's how you'll report the quarterly narrative every quarter. Um, so then, like I said, go in here, check your work plan, make sure everything's good in there, and then I'll approve them. And those numbers will be showing on here. I'll actually show you the plan versus actual dashboard. This is where this pulls from. Sometimes this does take a little bit of time, so you'll have to be a little patient with it.
I think this is like the single dashboard on the portal that takes the longest to load. So you may just want to have that kind of in your pocket for whenever.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, for me, they regularly take 20 seconds to load.
Well, if this doesn't load here in just a second, just know that in this dashboard, the plan versus actual will be where you can compare all of your numbers. So when you go into this screen on your own and you look at it, just find your organization, put in the 2025 year, and then just make sure that your numbers are matching. And then any discrepancies, please bring to our attention, right away, so we can kind of see what's going on. It doesn't look like it's going to pull up super quick. Could be just because we're on this call too. So, like I said, if you have any questions when you get in here, please feel free to reach out. The next tab, or here, I can kind of go through this. The user management, this would be how you would be adding somebody in there. So, like I said, you would, I guess, so you would select your organization, whatever it might be, and then you would click on here and it would show you everyone that's associated with your organization. And then if you want to add somebody, this is where you would kind of click, add all this information, search them. If they already have a WorkNet ID, it'll tell you that. If not, then it'll say to create one, and then you'll get the information that way, and then they'll be set up for it. And like I said, any of the main users will be able to do this for you. If not, me, Ivy, D, someone else can put this information in. We'll just need this information from you, though. And then the last thing I want to talk about on here today is this little folder here. It's provider info, but this is where you'll actually upload your quarterly documents, and it goes under here under file uploads, and then you'll select Apprenticeship Illinois, and then whichever provider you are. Just do. I'll stay with me on here. Okay, so you'll select whatever organization you are, and then all of your reports will be in here in order, and then you'll just upload a file, and then you'll just drag your file in here, and then they'll be uploaded. So that's why it's important just to make sure they're named correctly so we can find them. Yeah, and with that is kind of the very quick overview of WorkNet. And I'm pretty sure there is a document and YouTube videos on how to do each one of these things I just showed you. But if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I know the reports are due in 10 days. So, I mean, yeah, please feel free to reach out if it kind of seems overwhelming, because I know we just threw a lot of information at you today. So with that, yeah, we'll go ahead and take any questions you have.
Hey, Nate, do you know if somebody asks, is there a word count restriction for the quarterly narrative fields?
If there is, nobody's reached it yet. I don't believe there is a word count restriction, no. But I would encourage you to try.
And then Roy has asked, are we the LWIA grant or the grantee considered the provider? Yes. The WorkNet language, you just have to like learn the nuances. Yes, you are the provider, Rory. So basically just quickly, oh, somebody asked another question. I missed the part where you're going over the screen that says partner screen. Oh, okay, yeah.
No.
Here, I just wanted to share quickly, again, in WorkNet, Nate, you're telling them that they have to do the quarterly narrative, you know, by free enter the quarterly narrative, but then they're uploading these 3 documents in WorkNet, the PPR, which is and all of these are PDFs, the PFR and the trial balance. Is that correct, Chase?
Yes. Yep, that's correct.
So
So
4
it'll be
things they have to do
four
for
things
quarterly.
every quarter.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Here, there are others. Let's see. Yeah, these are for the apprenticeship expansion grants, both whether you're an intermediary or a navigator, or excuse me, apprenticeship specialist. Sorry, I used that word. That was an old word. But whether you're apprenticeship specialist or an intermediary, this is what's required for your grant from DCO. 4 different things for doing the quarterly reporting. Any other questions for Chase or Nate or Ivy or me? All right, like Antonio said, this all will be emailed to you, but then also Kimberly will put this on apprenticeshipillinois.com, where we put all of our webinar and materials. So all of these materials will be on apprenticeshipillinois.com. If you also on apprenticeshipillinois.com on the workforce partner page, you can get to the WorkNet grantee reporting page from there as well, or Nate's office hours. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and thank you all for your time. Chase, do you have any last words?
No, yeah, just reemphasize, please feel free to reach out. Like I said earlier, I know we threw a lot of information at you for, new grantees, and, we're coming down to, the final 10 days before everything's due. So please don't feel extremely overwhelmed and stressed out about this. Like, we're here to help.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Bye, everyone.
Thank you all.
Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you all.